Good morning, Liberty North AP and dual credit psychology students. It is virtual Wednesday, March 24th. All right. And today we're going to be continuing on with AP learning target number 3 with the theories of personality. And we'll be doing psychodynamic today. And then also we're going to take personality test number 5, which is the Rorschach Inkblot test. Okay. So first thing, if you want to go ahead and get your AP notebook and go to your personality lab, unit 10 lab. Okay. And this is going to be personality test number 5. And this is going to be the Rorschach Inkblot test. Okay. Or if you just want to put Inkblot, you can. All right. And then you need number 1 to 6. Okay. You do not need to skip spaces. Okay. And what I'm going to do for this test is I'm going to show you 6 Inkblots. All right. And again, it is a projective test. So again, what you need to do is look at each Inkblot in sequence and then write down the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay. All right. So the first thing you see comes to your mind, you need to write that down. Okay. I have them on, there's 3 on each sheet. So I'll try to show you each Inkblot by itself, one at a time. So I'll probably cover them up. Okay. Okay. All right. And then I'll give you some background on Rorschach and the Inkblots. When we go over the analysis, okay, which will be a little bit different on this one. And then again, don't forget to, at the end of the test, make sure you answer your 3 questions. Was it accurate? Was it core? Did it measure core or service traits? And then was it an objective or a projective test, which hopefully I think you're learning by now. Okay. All right. 1 to 6. Again, I'll show you 6 Inkblots. Your job is to look at the Inkblot and then again, write down the first thing that comes to your mind. You are allowed to write down more than one thing. So if you're just blasted real quickly by 3 things or whatever, you can write all of them down. So generally it's one thing, but if more than one thing comes to your mind, you can write that down. Okay. All right. So you're just going to list what you see. All right. Here's Inkblot number 1. Write down the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to do this one. All right. Trying to get it to where you can only see this one Inkblot. Okay, Inkblot number 2. Woo. Close your eyes. There we go. All right, Inkblot number 3. Oops, sorry. Sorry, let's try that again. Inkblot number 3. Okay, Inkblot number 4. Okay. All right, and this is going to be, if I can get it, Inkblot number 5. All right, and lastly, Inkblot number 6. Okay. All right. So just some history and some background. So Rorschach was a psychiatrist, actually from Switzerland. And actually, he loved Inkblots as a kid. And there was a game that actually included Inkblots when he was a kid that he was very fond of. So he developed a way, actually, so the original Rorschach Inkblot test did not become public until 1992, I think. It had to be, they were copyrighted until 70 years after his death. And so all his original notes and everything became open in 1992. But before that, you couldn't see a copy of the Inkblots. You didn't know what the analysis was, so on and so forth. But originally, the test was made to basically diagnose psychosis or schizophrenia specifically. So Rorschach, the original Inkblots were just made simply as a diagnostic tool for schizophrenia. Okay, so they were not used at all for general personality testing. Okay, that didn't come till later, till after Rorschach had passed away. Well, actually, I take that back. Some psychiatrists had started using his Inkblots for general personality testing while Rorschach was still alive, but he was very skeptical of it, as most psychologists are today. Now, Inkblots are used quite a bit on children, and they're actually used quite a bit on violent offenders or criminals as far as personality test goes. But as far as the general public goes, it's not very credible, it's not very valid, not very reliable, very subjective. As again, is the knack on most of Freud's stuff, most of the unconscious, okay? All right, so here's how you're gonna evaluate it. So first of all, again, remember as you go down through the 6 Inkblots that you are projecting yourself onto the Inkblot, okay? So it is a projective test. So again, the Inkblots are made to look like something, but generally, you can see all kinds of things, okay? So whatever you see is your unconscious mind coming forward. Now, generally in a Rorschach test, you would do 10 Inkblots, okay? And again, you'd look at them, you'd write down the first thing you saw or a group of things that you saw, okay? Again, the idea there is if you're seeing things according to Rorschach that just are not, not really related to the Inkblot or can be seen or validated in the Inkblot, that would be where we'd get into some psychosis and things like that. But again, that still is kind of debated a little bit. Again, anything with projective tests, the validity and reliability can be questioned. Then also, he said that if you have students or patients who are having problems seeing anything, in other words, they just can't see anything, nothing comes to mind, that was a sign of neurosis, okay, which is an intense level of anxiety and fear, okay? Now, if we get away from those two, and we just use it for general personality, what you want to look for is themes, okay? So patterns, themes that you are projecting onto the Inkblot. So, if you see a lot of things that are maybe aggressive, kind of more angry, violent pictures. If you see things that are more sad, more sullen type of pictures, okay? That's where we would look at and, and through the course of doing Inkblot after Inkblot, you would see patterns develop that might lead to, you have more of a introverted personality, extroverted personality. You look for patterns there. Do you see social active pictures? Do you see kind of individual quiet pictures? There's a word in there that's escaping me. Okay. So that's what we're going to look for is patterns. Now I only gave you 6. But try to look in your 6 and see if you see any patterns in the pictures that you saw. If you see bright, beautiful things, you see, I know one of them, a very popular thing is butterflies. That actually is an indication of extroversion. If you see pictures that are active, that are bright, that are open, if you see pictures that are kind of more individualistic, kind of reserved, quiet, that's going to be an introversion, so that's basically what you're doing is you're going to look down your 6 pictures and hopefully be able to see patterns that then would relate to a key that would relate to kind of personality traits that you would have. Okay. So I think the best projective test we're going to take is going to be on Thursday and Friday, where we take the thematic apperception test, which has a little bit more of a specific analysis. And usually it's pretty right on when the students take it. Okay. All right. So go down your 3 questions. So do you think it was accurate? Was there any type of pattern whatsoever? Did the pattern represent, your unconscious mind, the way you think, the way you look at the world, and so on and so forth? Is that consistent with what you saw in the Inkblots? Was it measuring core or surface traits? Okay, hopefully you can get that one. And then was it objective or projective? I know that you can handle that one. Okay. All right. All right. So let's go back to AP learning target number 3. Again, I said we'd be there for quite a bit. It's going to be a big one as we go down the different personality theories. Okay. And today we're still in the unconscious. So we're still basically in psychoanalysis. But what we are going to do here and what the book does is we're going to break off to the modern form of psychoanalysis, which is called psychodynamic theory. Okay. And we're going to talk about the Neo-Freudians here, which we've already talked about. All of these names were already given to you at the beginning, I think in learning target 1 or 2. So hopefully you have them in your name section or somewhere. All right, but just to give you a little bit more specifics on what they viewed as the unconscious process in the development of our personality. All right, so again, all of these psychologists, all the Neo-Freudians started with Freud, okay, and were part of his society and the legacy of psychoanalysis. They all still believe that the unconscious mind is the main influence on the development of our personality. So they align with Freud and psychoanalysis on that. What they differ on is what is in the unconscious mind. So when I get into the unconscious, they differ on what the main influence is in there. Okay, again, we're Freud, and mainly the difference was on sex. So again, Freud believed that in that id that we had in that unconscious mind, there was a huge drive, conflict, just regarding sex and aggression, and fulfillment, and so on and so forth. Okay. These 4 and others broke with Freud really on that sexual issue, in the id and as part of that unconscious mind. Now, they believe with Freud on other accounts of what's in the unconscious mind, but they didn't believe that sex was the main unconscious drive or influence that was there. Okay, so a couple things. So psychodynamic is still believes that the main influence is the unconscious mind. Okay, what they differ on is what is in the unconscious mind. Okay, psychoanalysis, Freud believed it was mostly dark, negative, bad stuff. Okay, these 4, as you can kind of see, it's kind of all over the place what's in there and what's the main unconscious striving. And I think all of these are correct. And in some ways, Freud is correct as well. And so kind of if you put them all together, you kind of got a great overall summative view of, how the unconscious mind influences our personality. Okay. All right. Now, so the modern day definition is our personality is influenced by the unconscious and also by childhood experiences. Okay, so that's kind of the big difference between psychodynamic and psychoanalysis, is the difference of what's in the unconscious mind and then specifically the childhood experiences. Okay, so all of the Neo-Freudians, now most of them really specialized in child development and just development overall, and could see how your unconscious mind develops and how it is different from childhood, adolescence to adulthood, and that the drives could be multiple drives in the unconscious mind and could also change and develop with time. Okay. All right. So psychodynamic means unconscious and childhood experiences, all right, are the main influence on our personality. And this was founded by the Neo-Freudians. This tradition was started. Usually today, now psychodynamic refers to modern psychoanalysis, if you will. Okay. All right. Okay. So these 4 are Neo-Freudians. They emphasize the unconscious mind as the main influence, just like Freud did, but they break from Freud on what specifically is in the unconscious mind. Okay. All right. So Adler basically said that the main influence in our unconscious mind is our striving for superiority. So he believed that unconsciously we strive to master everything. Okay. We try to be dominant and superior in every area of our life. Okay. And that's the main unconscious drive. So instead of sex, you put superiority in there. And he believed that was kind of our main unconscious drive that was a part of our unconscious mind that helped develop our personality. So our personality basically stems from us continually to unconsciously strive for superiority, mastery, dominance, and everything. Okay. Now, if you've heard of the word inferiority complex, okay, that comes from Adler. So if in any area of my life, I'm always striving for superiority, if I can't master it, if I don't have superiority, then I start to feel inferior. Okay. And then that comes out with unhealthy characteristics, right? So now Adler was a very sickly child, and you definitely can see that his theory kind of raised from him and his experiences. As a child, he was very sickly. He was very small, generally unhealthy. So, he felt inferior in a lot of areas of his life. And so he was trying to always compensate for that or try to achieve superiority. Okay. All right, Karen Horney. All right, so again, her and Freud definitely butted heads quite a bit. She's also the one that counteracted penis envy with womb envy. Okay, so she kind of had a lot of spit and vinegar in her, but her main unconscious drive, she believed that unconsciously we all strive for love and security, and that's the main drive that's in our unconscious mind. You know, we unconsciously long to be loved by other people, to be accepted, to belong. So you can kind of see a lot of Maslow in here, except it's unconscious, and for security, to feel safe. Okay. And she did a lot of work on anxiety, and her work is actually still holds up today. And a lot of psychiatrists, psychologists believe it. And she believed that, and she basically stated that if, you know, in this journey and unconscious longing for love and security, if we can't find it, then we start to develop anxiety issues. So she said at the core of anxiety is caused by that unconscious yearning for love and security and not being able to have it or find it in life, which there's a lot of validity and merit to that in therapy. Okay. All right. Then Carl Jung, again, also from Switzerland. This one's kind of one of the harder theories, but it's also kind of one of the more popular ones. So Jung believed that basically in our unconscious mind, we had what was called a collective unconscious, which is kind of like a holding bin for all traditions, universal values that are held and passed on to people as we go through time. Okay. And so you have this, basically these unconscious traditions and themes that we're all trying to unconsciously fulfill in our lives. And these are specifically identified as archetypes. So an archetype would be a theme, a universal theme. So it'd be like the hero, the damsel in distress, the wise old mentor, the villain. Okay. Like in school, we have a universal theme of a good student. Okay. And you guys all unconsciously know what that means. And you all are unconsciously striving to obtain that. Okay. All right. And then some of you are unconsciously trying to obtain the clown of the school, or the person who doesn't value education, or who rebels. We have these universal themes that are labeled as archetypes, and we're all unconsciously trying to fulfill those. So Jung said we're all unconsciously at times wanting to be a villain, wanting to be the model student, wanting to be the mentor, the learner, the person in distress. We have these themes that are there and represented in our collective unconscious, and we are unconsciously longing to fulfill them. And as a result, our personality develops. Okay, which I didn't say with Horney. So her personality, again, with that striving unconsciously for love and security, then our personality develops out of that longing. Okay, and striving. Okay, so same thing with Jung. Okay, now I think one of the greatest examples, you can see examples of, I think what Jung is trying to refer to is, if I just one day in school busted out Journey, Don't Stop Believing, you guys would all break into song on that and sing that. And the question is, well, how do you even know that? That was my music from my generation. How does it get passed down to your generation? And it's so popular. And Jung was going to say collective unconscious, okay? Archetypes, okay? The song represents an archetype. It represents a theme that we all are unconsciously longing for, okay? And sometimes you guys are singing things you don't even know what they mean, but you're singing it because every generation sang it, and the tradition was passed down in your unconscious mind, okay? All right, then lastly, the book does not include Anna Freud, but I always like to include her here. Again, she is Freud's youngest daughter. And actually, Freud really wanted his oldest daughter to carry on the traditions of psychoanalysis. But she wasn't too keen on doing that. Really, the only daughter, and Freud had all daughters, I believe, that really expressed interest in therapy, psychology, was Anna. And then Freud tried to, again, press down on her his views of psychoanalysis. And Anna rebelled. She also was with the Neo-Freudians and agreed that, in young children, sex is not the main unconscious conflict or influence. It's actually internal conflicts that come from development. So, Anna basically said, it's different. But as children, you're developing so much, you're changing so much, you're learning so much that, in that process and in these childhood experiences, which are huge and massively shape our lives moving forward, we have internal conflicts. We come into conflicts, and those really kind of become the cornerstone of our unconscious mind and then shape the development of our personality moving forward. Anna is also, sometimes she's referred to as the mother of child psychology. Play therapy, there's several things that she did. So she loved working with children, and she loved working and trying to help resolve internal conflicts that they had. And she knew that if you have an internal conflict as a child, generally you're going to repress it. You're going to shove it down in that unconscious mind. So we need to get it out through play therapy. So we need to find ways in which we can contact the child, get into their unconscious mind that is comfortable for them in ways that they won't resist, which would be like using play therapy or coloring or drawing and things like that. So book doesn't include her, but I think she's she's a very important figure in psychology. She actually is a huge influence on child psychology, so on and so forth. Okay. All right. Okay. So that is psychodynamic and the Neo-Freudians. Okay. So we're going to kind of take a next step. Again, we're going to go to humanistic starting Thursday and Friday. All right. All right. If you have any questions, just contact me on Zoom. These are I just sent this out on Twitter. I'll put them down on Canvas here in a little bit. All right. And have a good virtual Wednesday.